So it's the summer of 1995, and I, along with a group of my friends from college, were on Martha's Vineyard during July 4th weekend. We were actually right in the center of town in Oak Bluffs, and we were walking down the street, all of us together, and there's a group of women who are coming in the opposite direction, so we crossed paths.
And my girlfriends were walking down the street, and we happened to walk past a group of young men. And one of my friends struck up a conversation with one of Steve's friends, and they started talking. And just by coincidence, Steve and I happened to be standing next to each other.
And I found myself standing next to a young woman. She and I were talking for maybe 5 minutes or so.
We started talking, and we had this wonderful conversation about the state of America. I happened to have been in graduate school at the time. He was working for Boston College, and I see Steve's friend out of the corner of my eye going, "Cut it off, buddy," and so I started laughing.
He whispers, but he whispers loud enough for her to hear. He says, "Hey, I don't know if you've noticed, she's engaged."
And I said, I am engaged. And he says, "Oh." And he says, "Well, good for you, congratulations." And I said, "Thank you."
So my friend says, "Well, hey, look, we have to go." And so we parted ways. And she walks away, and as she does, I remember thinking, though, the man marrying her is really lucky. And I didn't think another thing about it.
I went with my girlfriends, and my girlfriends were like, "Oh my God, he was so this, and he was so cute, and this, that, and the other." And it was so funny. And I started laughing, and I said, "Yeah, he was." I just kind of smiled and walked away.
So I did actually see her one other time that weekend. I was on the beach, and she was just off in the distance by herself. She looked deep in thought, so I didn't interrupt. Well, a year later, I'm back on Martha's Vineyard with my same set of friends. This is usually what we did. And we were in this really popular night spot called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Fast forward a year later, I ended my engagement, and I happened to be on Martha's Vineyard again with my girlfriends, and we were in this club. The club is no longer there. It's called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. It was called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
And so I'm there, and I see this very striking woman who I've never seen before. She keeps staring at me. Now, ordinarily, I'm a really cool guy. It has men I want to do. Sometimes there's somebody that you see and you steal glances at them, but you don't want them to know that you're stealing glances at them. And so that's what I was doing. But every time I looked over in her direction, she would look back at me. So she caught me every time.
And I kept staring because I could not believe that it was him. And so I walk over to him, and he happened to have been talking to somebody at the time, but I just was making a beeline over to him because I was so surprised. I never thought that I would see him again.
And she's making a beeline right for me, so I know that she's coming to talk to me. I introduced myself. I said, "Hi, I'm Steve." And she doesn't introduce herself. She says, "I know you."
And I said, "I know you." And, now that I think back, I pretty much boldly interrupted his conversation, but I said, I know you.
And I, in a moment of just utter stupidity, I said, "You do?"
And he says, "You do?" Kind of like, "Who are you?" And I was crushed. And I thought two things. One, I can't believe he doesn't remember me. And the second thing that I thought was, oh, I'm not going to give him an edge up on me and act like I'm like some groupie girl or something. And, like he was coming across kind of as a player.
But I was saying that because what I was thinking was, I've never seen this woman before in my life. And how does someone this striking know me and I don't know her? But she does something really, I thought, quite magical in that moment. Rather than trying to explain how we knew each other, she just says, "I must be mistaken," and she walks away.
So I said, "I'm sorry, I must be mistaken." And I turned around and I walked away, and I was crushed.
Well, she got about 5 feet away from me, and all of a sudden I remembered everything about her.
And he grabs my arm and he says, "Did you get married?" And I was like, "You do remember."
And she smiles, this wonderful smile, and she says, "Oh, so you do remember." And yes, I did remember.
And so we had a great conversation. I do remember it being loud in the club. And so we went outside on the patio just to catch up and to talk. And
that time went by so quickly. It was actually the end of the night, and I had lost track of my friends, and she had lost track of her friends until the place closed. So for the rest of that weekend, we kept bumping into each other or seeing each other. The truth is I was chasing her, but since she's not around. But it's true.
We met up again at dinner, and every time I turned around, I was meeting up with Steve again, and my girlfriends were getting a little upset. They were like, every time we turn around, you're hanging with Steve. It's supposed to be a girls' weekend.
My friends didn't care, but her friends did.
And my friend Kim says to me, she says, you've been spending all this time with him. And she says, you don't even know his last name. And I was like, you're right. I said, but there's just something about him. I said, there's something. I'm like, he's genuine, he's honest, he has the best questions, so thought-provoking, and I could just tell that there was something about him that was special that I didn't want to let go of.
And at one point, she says to me, hey, my friends want to know, how come I'm spending all this time with you and I don't know your last name? And in that moment, I said, well, you please tell your friends that my last name is Pemberton, and one day we're going to share that name.
And I swear, I just lost it. Of course, I couldn't let him know I lost it, but I just politely excused myself. I was like, yeah, we'll see about that, buddy. And I walked away, but I knew in my heart then. And actually we're coming up on our 21st anniversary. So it certainly has been a wonderful journey.
So Tonya and I were married less than a year after that. But every year we go back to Martha's Vineyard and we take a picture standing in the spot where we first met. And so over the years, that picture, which initially began with just she and I, now has grown to include our children, Quinn and Vaughn and Kennedy, who they in turn themselves have also grown as well. But I think that 100 years from now, there's going to be an entirely new generation of Pembertons who are going to gather at that exact same spot and take a picture of family, which is what Tonya and I were looking to build all along.